and we'll start the webinar. We'll give it a few minutes to give folks time to log in. Get all of our event info up in the chat. This is always like the awkward pause before the event really begins. Bear with us, everyone. Okay, good evening and welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Jessica from Greenlight and we are thrilled to host tonight's event with Marie Arnold launching her new book, The Year I Flew Away. She's going to be talking with Zoraida Córdova, so you are in for an excellent time tonight. Before we start, I just want to say a huge thanks to Marie and to Zoraida and to the team at Versify for making this event happen and to all of you for showing up. Though we're not able to host events in our store spaces right now, our community of authors and readers is still here. So we're grateful for your support and for the chance to make space for conversation and connection. A couple little housekeeping things before we get started. In our Zoom webinar tonight, you can see and hear the speakers, but they can't see and hear you. They can see that you're here though, and you can see a count of fellow attendees at the top of your Zoom screen. There's a couple different ways you can interact with the authors and with each other throughout tonight's event, which we highly encourage. The first one is the chat, which you can find by clicking on the icon that looks like a speech balloon. You're welcome to post your comments and thoughts in the chat. It's a great way to show your appreciation for the author and interact with fellow attendees. And we'll be dropping some buy links and other information in there throughout the event too. If you have a specific question you'd like to have answered by the author, please post that question in the Q&A. You can find that by clicking on the icon that looks like two speech balloons. We'll be pulling questions only from the Q&A to be answered in the later part of the program. We are recording tonight's event, so look for video or audio versions on our social media channels later on. And very importantly, tonight's featured book, The Year I Flew Away, is available for sale from Greenlight Bookstore. You can shop in person in our bookstore locations 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week. And you can purchase Marie's book and many others on site. Or order online at greenlightbookstore.com for a quick pickup at the store or for shipping anywhere in the US. I'll drop the buy link in the chat in a moment. If you care about supporting the careers of authors and the ongoing existence of independent bookstores, buying tonight's featured book is a great way to show your support. So, introductions. Our interviewer tonight is Zoraida Córdova. Zoraida was born, I should have asked for the pronunciation for this, in Guayaquil, Ecuador, and raised in Queens, New York. She's the author of many fantasy novels, including the award-winning Brooklyn Brujas series, Incendiary, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, A Crash of Fate, and The Way to Rio Luna. Her short fiction has appeared in numerous anthologies as well, and she's the co-host of the writing podcast Deadline City and co-editor of Vampires Never Get Old. When she's not working on her next novel, she's finding a new adventure, and she's joining us tonight from Puerto Rico, so we appreciate her time tonight. She's going to be speaking with our featured author, Marie Arnold. Marie was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and came to America at the age of 7. She grew up in Brooklyn, New York, alongside her extended family, and now lives in Los Angeles, California. So we're all in different time zones tonight. Marie enjoys creating stories full of adventure and wonder, which center on girls of color. When she's not writing, she's adding to her insanely long Netflix queue and trying not to order pizza. Her new book, The Year I Flew Away, is an enchanting tale that follows 10-year-old Gabrielle and her rocky transition from Haiti to Brooklyn, where she's sent to live with her extended family. With the help of a clever witch, Gabrielle can become the perfect American, but will she lose herself in the process? So Marie's going to start us off with a short reading from the book, and then she'll be talking with Zoraida and then with all of you via the Q&A. So Marie, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. This is the book, The Year I Flew Away. And now I'm going to read a quick excerpt to see what the story is about. Here we go. The witch, Lady Lydia, stands in front of me, waiting for me to tell her to go away. And that's what I should do, because that's what smart girls do, and I am very smart. But I'm also a little curious. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? Oh, I'm sorry, Gabrielle. I didn't mean to waste your time. You made it clear the other day that you don't really need my help. You're not even interested in what I have to offer. Enjoy the rest of your day, dear. When her sharp heels click on the shiny surface of the hallway, they make a sound. Her steps fall in line with the pounding of my heart. Her walk is slow but steady, and with each click, my heart beats faster and I become more desperate. What if her magic is the only way I will ever make friends? What if I'm standing here doing nothing while my only hope of happiness goes away, one click at a time? A Lady Lydia? Wait. She doesn't stop. She stops, but doesn't turn around. Yes, she says in a deep, booming voice. I was thinking maybe it's rude not to listen to someone, even if that someone is a witch. Are you saying you're interested in my help? I'm saying maybe, I reply as I swallow hard. She slowly turns to face me. Her mouth curls into a smile and her eyes gleam with delight. She laughs. There's ice in her laughter and ice in her smile. Well, dear Gabrielle, come, come closer.
Yay!
It
That was
went black for a
excellent.
second and I was like, I can't see anything.
We're gone. I just left you
Just
as
a little
part of the
exit
witch's
for you.
bargain. My Irish exit. I'm so excited to be here with you. I feel like we've known each other for so long and we've never actually gotten to do an event together. But
Yes. And
now
now we
we both,
can.
yeah, now we can. Now we both have middle grades. So I want to talk to you about what it feels like to have your first middle grade out in the world.
It's scary, good. If you could have those two phrases at the same time, because it's scary because you're waiting to see if people like it, what they think, and all the other stuff. And it's good because the reviews have been really good, but at the same time, you're just nervous. So I'm just like a ball of nerves. That's what it is. An exciting ball of nerve kind of thing. How was it
So,
for you?
well, I mean, my book came out at the height of the pandemic last year. It's called The Way to Rio Luna. And so it was sort of like that meme of that little cartoon dog sitting at the table with the
With a
fire.
fire? Yeah.
And it's like, everything's fine, please buy my book. And we're
It's
still in a
true.
pandemic, so we're still that little dog sitting in the
It's true.
fire.
The thing is, regardless of books, I don't know anyone who's not the little dog in the fire.
That's true. That's
Even
true.
the
But we're
mailman, even my mailman, when he comes, he hands it to me and he'll pause before he gives it to me like, this is weird, right? I'm like, yes, it's totally weird. Put your mask back on. Yeah, we're fine.
yeah,
So
it's right. It's sort of like we're going day to day as if everything's the same, but it's not. We're in a global pandemic. Anyway, buy our books.
yeah, and don't forget, buy it, like buy it right now. And it's just like, this is so surreal. But
I
I love
know.
escapism, and that's the
I
joy of a
do.
book.
So I want you to pitch your book. Tell us what your book is like. Going a little further into, we know that Gabrielle is a girl making a pact with a witch, or like witches' bargains. Never trust a
Yeah.
witch. Never trust me, clearly. So tell me a little bit about the inception, like the spark for this book.
I've wanted to talk about just coming to America because it's loosely based on my life because I came here from Haiti when I was about 7. I've wanted to do it for a while and the timing just didn't feel right until recently because there's been so much about immigrants in the news, and so much of it has been negative, like not being from here is a bad thing. So it felt like this would be a good time to kind of address that, and I was able to put a little bit of magic in it, so that just made it even all the more fun. But it felt like a timely thing, and my editor was like, you are not from here, right? Why don't you write about that? I'm like, I do have something. And then it just kind of came out of that.
Mm-hmm. And so do you see yourself being a little bit like Gabrielle? Like, how did you create her?
All my characters generally come fully formed, or as fully formed as they can be. I just have to stay out of the way. So she was already like, hey, I'm here, let's talk, blah 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 blah. So she had a lot of the experiences that I had, in terms of wanting to be American, because that's
Right.
such a theme here, where it's like, how can I be like everyone else? How can I be like everyone else? That was the campaign when I was a kid. So Gabrielle has that. So we're a lot alike in that way, but she's much smarter than me. and she has more courage than I did. No, seriously.
That's one of the things that I love about writing kid lit, middle grade fiction, and young adult fiction is that we sort of get to write these kids who are so much braver than any version of the people. I mean, when I was a little kid, I was like, look at me, like I needed attention. And then I got into my teens and I got into like my awkward phase. And then I was like, nobody look at me, nobody pay me attention. So I feel like I've been writing for this age group has let me figure out, like, have that like second coming of age. I don't know if you feel that way.
No, I know what you're saying. It felt like a way to kind of rewrite the past and make it a lot more interesting, because I'm the kid who had nothing to do after school except read. That was my thing. And I always assumed that other people were having these fantastic lives. I don't know. I had this image in my head where there was a circus and there were sleepovers and people were eating Cookie Crisps. Obviously, my parents would not let me eat Cookie Crisps, so they had sugary cereals. They were having fun, and I was stuck home because I had no friends. So now I get to go back and I get to put that little girl in the middle of everything. So I get to rewrite it.
Do you ever like revenge buy things that you couldn't have when you were younger? Like I revenge bought Lunchables and stuff from Hot
I've
Topic.
done that. You know what's odd? I've spoken to several people in reference to this book, and whenever we get to the subject of what makes you feel American, what makes you, and it's always Lunchables. I don't know why, but almost every single reporter I've spoken to, or just my publicist sends my way, it's always like, oh, well, I had to have Lunchables. And it's true because it made being a kid official. Like you had the box, right, and there's separate departments. It just made it a very official American kid thing.
But it's like, I feel like Lunchables is like a cheap version of a bento box, right? So is it, I mean, what makes it American is the processed cheese, the fake cheese. I mean, I won't sleep on American cheese. Like I will eat that melted processed goop. It's delicious. But so now that I've derailed us.
No, I understand, but it is the things that I do, but to answer your question, I do revenge buy. At least I did when I went to college. I would just stroll down the cereal aisle and look for anything that left like a weird color in your milk. Yeah. That's how I knew it was sweet and bad for you. And so I would have it as much as possible.
Yeah. So I think that one of the things that for me, it was because you and I are both immigrants. Like we both moved to America when we were young. I was 5 or 6. And
where did you move here from?
I moved here from Ecuador.
Ecuador, okay.
Yeah. And so it, life was so I don't have like it was more constrictive in America, right? Because we didn't have the same neighborhood, where like in Ecuador, it was like our whole family was the neighborhood. And in America, it was like you lived in a building where you didn't know anybody. And so I didn't really have the need to feel like, oh, like if I speak English, I'm going to be American, because I was in ESL classes, but also there's such a larger Spanish speaking population that, I never felt not at home, because like everyone in my class spoke Spanish, but you speak like French, right?
Yeah, it's Haitian Creole, so it's like Creole. French, and it's like mixed with other, I want to say West African languages. I could be wrong about specifically where, but Haitian Creole. I grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and they have a really large Haitian population. But unfortunately for me, I think it was depending on what time of year you came into the school, if they could fit you into that ESL class or just that Haitian class. But I ended up going to an all English speaking class, and then I would get pulled out for ESL. So what would happen is I spoke I spoke English too well for the Haitian kids, so they didn't really like me, and I didn't speak it well enough for the American or the English speaking kids, so they didn't like me. So I was too American on one end and not Haitian enough on the other. So it was just like me in the middle, just trying to. That's the joy of books. It took me away from all that craziness.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, and like at least for me in the late '90s, going to elementary school in Queens. I'm from Jamaica, Queens, Hollis, Queens. It's like the composite of those old neighborhoods, which is something that you have to do in your book. So in your, I also used to live in Flatbush when I was 19. I moved to Flatbush.
Okay.
That's where I got this scar from washing the dishes.
Really?
Okay. I had dirty roommates. And they left the dishes out, and I broke my hand. I broke a thing on my hand. I don't know. Anyway, so 1985. Why did you choose to write historical fiction?
I didn't really choose it. It was the year I found her in. And so it was like, okay, she's like, this is, and again, it really was based on when I came here. And that was around the year that I came. So that's it just felt like she came fully formed, and she came with the year. She came with her own opinions on witches. She became basically fully formed. And I remember 1985 in Brooklyn so vividly that I knew I could capture the setting and not have to really work too much on that end, because I was so familiar with it, whether it's, the Caribbean food spots and the laundromats and the pizza by the slice, the good things in life.
Right. When you back in my day, you could buy a pizza slice for $1.
And it's huge. Yes, and it was huge.
Yeah.
It was a huge thing. Now it's just disappeared. But yeah, so I knew it was a good time, and I know that environment very well. So
we knew that times are changing when quarter waters stop being a quarter. So
quarter waters, I think now legally quarter waters might actually not make it past the FDA. Like there was nothing healthy about quarter waters.
It's like a bomb of preservative. Yeah, I don't know.
It's the kind of blue that stays on your tongue for 2 days. Let's just put it like that. So you should probably avoid it. So it's probably good that it's not around anymore.
It's like radioactive reds and stuff, and but they were delicious.
They were delicious. I mean, basically, we were living on the edge. Basically, is what we were doing. So
it was right before, because like sometimes they were a little like sparkly. Like it was like the Brooklyn Queens versions of LaCroix, right?
Yes, exactly. It's so weird that you say that. It's exactly what it was like. So I wanted to capture that.
Wanted to capture that. And how do you think it would be different? How do you think Gabrielle's journey would be different if it was being told in what year are we in
now? What year?
Yeah.
Rumor has it's 2021.
Okay.
I haven't checked. I'm still getting whiplash from 2020. So, but it would be, well, for one thing, she'd be going to school virtually. So
right. You know what? I should say 2019, pre-pandemic.
Okay, 2019. Okay. I recall that year. Well, obviously one of the major changes would be, the advent of the internet. So definitely maybe she might not feel as alone as she did in the beginning. Right. But at the same time, you can get bullied online. So
that's true.
It's not like you gotten away with it. Yeah. Oh, I hope not. But she could definitely, she would definitely probably get bullied if we were changing the time. Because she got bullied in school, but it would be an online version, which is equally bad.
Sure. So this is like the perfect time because zero internet, Facebook isn't even real. So thank goodness, right?
Yes.
And also, like, did you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yes.
So do you remember when they started introducing computers and the witches became like techno pagans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's what
it would have been
like how does Gabrielle make her deal with a witch if it's not in person, right? If it's online.
It has to be on the dark net or something, like
Oh
like a
yeah.
witch's dark net. Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
It would have been a totally different book.
I can buy an entire whale to consume and also make a deal with a witch
Exactly.
on the dark net. So speaking of witches, tell me about the magic you created.
Do you mean the style of magic in the book?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are a lot of witches in Brooklyn, and that's not necessarily to say, they're bad, but there's definitely a lot of magic, especially around in the Haitian community. And in real life, it really is a thing where like magic is woven into the culture. So if someone, if a Haitian friend says, "Oh, so and so is a witch," or was eaten by a witch or whatever, it's kind of like, "Oh, okay." You don't stop to be like, "What is this
Right.
insane magic?" And it did happen in the book too. When Gabrielle meets the witch, she doesn't have that moment of, "Oh no, they exist." It's more like, "Okay, cool, I got you. All right, you're a witch." So it's very much a well-worn part of the culture. So I kind of picked and I picked here and there in terms of magic, Haitian beliefs and magic, kind of mixing it all up and putting it in the book.
Okay. That's really cool. Because coming from Ecuador, there are things that are just part of the culture,
Exactly.
like
I was going to ask you about that. Yes. Magic in
witches
your
do
book.
have, right. So witches do have a negative connotation in most of Latin America, right? And now there's this movement, like an empowerment movement. To my watch is telling me to stand up, and I forgot to silence it. So there's an empowerment movement to sort of reclaim the word witch and what that means. But when I was little, right, being a witch was this like this thing that some women had. They were a little ostracized from the community. And I remember watching, like my grandmother, when we were in Ecuador, she had the evil eye put on her by somebody. And so we went to this lady who lived in this like shack down this like leaky street. And they promptly laid my grandmother on a table, rubbed this egg uncooked on her with a shell, like still inside the shell. I had to explain to somebody. Somebody was like, "You put egg on your grandmother?" No. It's the egg still in the shell.
So
and
you're
rub it around.
rolling it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're rubbing it around her to like, she's like, they're extracting the evil eye from her. And then the witch, she cracks the egg into the glass of water and is like, "Oh, you have the evil eye." And I was like, "But how can you tell?" And they were like, because it's there, like the shape of the egg yolk,
Wow.
that stuff, not the egg yolk, the white stuff, the egg whites. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, you just have to, and we were just okay with it, right? And then she like kind of hit my grandmother with these leaves, and that was her encounter with a witch who
Did that
removed
take
her
out the
evil eye. Yeah, supposedly, yes.
They're very serious about this. Like, it's not like if my mom says, "Hey, so and so's a witch," like that's it. Like we don't really debate. Do they exist? Or that she's like, "No, I'm telling you, it's a witch." You're like, "Okay." It's just part of the culture. Like, "Oh, witch."
It's part of the culture. And so Gabrielle, in your book, she makes a bargain. And so can you talk a little bit about what this bargain does to her and how it sort of changes her trajectory?
Well, this bargain with the witch feels like a golden ticket. Like, it's an entry into being popular, being liked, being appreciated, having friends. It is the social ticket, like the social event of the year, basically, in her life. Because with this witch, she's going to have a series of things happen to her that make her fit in and that make everyone like her. And all she has to give up something, but it's so small, it's not even worth mentioning. So at least initially. So this deal is important because it essentially means that she will be liked by everyone and will be 100% American.
Right.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means, right? And that means
Yeah.
something different to so many people. So
Yeah.
it's so interesting to think about. What deal would you make with a witch if you encountered one?
Okay, first, let me start by saying I would absolutely make a deal with a witch, because I think what I want is really, like, I want it that badly that I would I would like chocolate that tastes like chocolate but has no sugar. As a diabetic, that is my only wish. I want something that's full of sugar but doesn't taste like it, and that's not full of sugar but doesn't taste like it. So that's my dream, and it hasn't happened yet. I don't care what they tell you on those commercials; it's not the same. So I would totally make a deal with a witch so that I could have something super sugar free and low carb that doesn't taste like it. And I would sell my soul for that. I'll tell you right now. If that was the thing, I would totally do that. What about you?
I would absolutely make a deal with the witch, although I might actually be the witch making the deals, to be honest.
So there would be consequences.
So I think that I would, this is like me making a wish in 2019, because I don't acknowledge 2020 and beyond.
I'm on it. I got you.
Right. Because it'd be like, oh, why don't you wish for coronavirus to end? And I'm like,
that's
let me
something else.
enjoy my wish with my Ursula. Okay?
I will let you enjoy your wish. Go.
I think that, money is obvious, right? But that's too easy. I feel like it would have to be something like, I want the ability to read people's minds.
Oh, I would never want that.
Because I always think everyone hates me all the time and everyone's mad at me. So I'm just like, it would be so much easier if I could read people's minds.
See, I always think that too, but I don't want a confirmation. So I would just like,
right. So then what if they do hate me?
Nope, no confirmation. I'm like, ignorant bliss, la, 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 I can understand that wish though. I can totally understand that wish though, but I've seen a lot of films around that premise and it rarely works out.
You're right. I did watch, it wasn't that the premise to What Women Want, and what the new
Twilight
one,
Zone, basically
I haven't
everything.
Seen that. Sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
But no, I get it. It's just, you might actually hear what people think, and that is very dangerous.
That's actually such a dangerous territory. But I could solve crimes. I could catch all the bad guys. It's like, oh,
that's a good one.
You convicted yourself.
Yeah, and then you would get a cape and everything, because they have a little package for, like, if you become superhero, you get the cape, you get the hat, the ID, the whole thing. So that is a worthwhile wish. I withdraw that. That is a worthwhile wish.
Awesome. Other than that, I would be like, I just want Pedro Pascal to love me, but then I'm really against love potions. Like, I don't believe in them. So
wait, who would you want to love you?
Do you know the actor Pedro Pascal? He's the Mandalorian.
Yes, I saw him on a cover just a couple hours ago. And I understand your wish now.
Thank you. But I'm just like fundamentally against love spells. So
are you?
It's fine. He'll find his way to me eventually.
I have no doubt about that.
Okay, so I have taken up enough of your shenanigans, or you've taken enough of my shenanigans. I'm gonna read some of the audience questions. And Adrian is here. Hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Adrian asks, how is writing middle grade different from young adult?
Word count. Word count. At first, I like it because it's smaller than YA. So at first, I'm like, oh, this is great. It's a shorter word count, less work. It's not. It's not less work. I'm sorry to all middle grade writers that I thought that at first, because definitely it is equally difficult because you have to find a way to squeeze that into a set number of pages. So word count was definitely a task.
Mm-hmm. How many, but like, what about voice?
In terms of, it felt basically the same, honestly, because they each, whether it's you're writing for teenagers or you're writing for younger kids, they each come with a set amount of urgency. So it didn't feel that much different for me, whether it was a teenager, trying to fall in love, or whether it was somebody like Gabrielle who's trying to get friends. That sense of urgency was what was driving them. So everything else pretty much stayed the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. When I made the jump between young adult fiction and middle grade, and the difference in, if anyone's watching is not familiar with the actual age groups, middle grade is under like 12 and younger, I believe, because I guess you're a teenager when you're 13. But some YA is a lot older. Like my YA is a little bit older for most, because like super violent, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think that one of the biggest comments that I got when I wrote my middle grade was from one of my friends, Mark Ashiro, and he was like, this book is so sad. Like, I was like, yeah, it's the book. This book gave me so much joy. And he was like, you were horrible to these characters. This made you happy? I thought it was happy. Everyone was having fun and like having an adventure. But that's just me. All right.
I get that.
So, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Tatiana, the reader, asks, who or what inspired you to write this novel?
The time that we're living in, as I said before, it felt very anti-immigrant for a while in this country. And I was like, wow, if I was, that age now, I would really feel like maybe I'm not wanted in this country. And so I kind of wanted to write a book that had explored these kind of themes, and hopefully some kid will read it and feel, hey, maybe it's okay to not be from here, and maybe it's okay to be from two different places and still feel American.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like, that's so much more profound than like, I just want to write about magic and things like that. But I do think that there's something to be said for, when I was younger, there were really no books written by Latin American people or Haitian people, or, like specifically that were fun and not like pain narratives. And so I think that the reason that I write any story is to add just to like the fun stories and the escapism that literature inevitably provides.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you want to choose like a sad book, like that's a personal choice. And I support those choices. But I just like, I want to have fun and I want to laugh and like, I want to get into mischief. Like, I love Gabrielle because like I would definitely be like, okay, let's, like, you're a witch, let's make a deal, right? And so yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons why writing that. And somebody asked, like, it's a follow-up question. Somebody asked, Virginie asks, why did you decide to write young adult fiction and kids too? And I think that we might have very similar answers to this, but I'll let you go first.
I should bounce it back to you because I have no idea. I have no idea how to answer that. It's just gonna sound so meta and crazy, but I take them at whatever age they come to me. If they come to me at 7, then they're 7. If they come to me at 12, then they're 12. So it all depends on the characters that come to me. And this one happened to come, and she was 10, and she lived in Brooklyn. So I took it as she came. Her excitement was infectious. But
Right.
As far as writing YA versus writing younger, it felt like this particular book could hit home more if it was middle grade.
Right.
I really wanted to reach younger kids.
No, I agree with you. I think that there's something to be said about the voice that comes to you is the voice that, shows up. Um, and so it it's not about saying, to me, it's not about like, oh, okay, I'm gonna write a middle grade novel now, right? It's, oh, this character appeared to me like Athena out of Zeus's, was
Hmm.
it his brain, right? And
I'm getting a Greek reference. You're all over the place.
yeah.
I like it. I haven't had a Greek reference in a minute.
It- and so like that this is the character, and if they're 12, they're 12, and if they're 17, they're 17. But I'm not going to try to fit it into any kind of category or anything like that. Because then it's not genuine, right? And I think as writers, we have to tell the truth. And when we're writing for children, they can tell when you're not being genuine, and they'll tell you. They're like, "Miss, this book sucks."
In
So
those
that's,
words,
yeah.
in those very words. Yeah.
Yeah. So Adrian asks, do your sidekick characters ever try to take over your stories?
Ha ha. All the time, especially with the year I flew away. I had said it on a previous interview that her sidekick is a New York City rat who dreams of becoming a rabbit. And he wants to take over. Like, since writing, maybe this first week of writing, he popped up and Rocky's like, I'm here, let's go, I have a story. And I'm like, okay, I'm still working on Gabrielle's story. And he's like, that sounds personal, let me tell you what's going on with me. And so he definitely has his own adventure, and he wants to take over, and I refuse to let him. I am not giving in so far, but he's pushy, so stay tuned.
I have moments like that where the characters take on a life of their own, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, maybe I should write a novel about this other guy, or girl, or anybody.
And do you usually end up
So
writing it?
no, because nobody tells me what to do. Least of all, not my characters.
My characters are much more pushy. They're like, this is this, and that's what's going on. But I try to ignore the extra stuff, because otherwise I would never move on to a different world. I would always be in that book, 7 characters down and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah, take control.
Take
Take
control. You have
control,
to
Zoraida.
take control. You have to take control of the wheel. So I'm going to combine these two questions that are about magic, because you and I, we both love writing magic in our stories. How do we choose the magic that exists in this world? Like, you pulled culturally, I pulled culturally, but I don't know if you want to expound on that a little bit.
It's definitely cultural. It's not just Haitian culture that has, obviously, the witches and the whole, beware of making a wish thing, but I definitely pulled in from specifics from Haiti, like the women gathering in the middle of the village to talk about a new witch on the block or anything like that. So that part of the magic came specifically from Haiti, but also I am an avid reader, obviously, and a lot of fantasy has magic that I can relate to. Magic where it's basically based on your faith, how much you believe, and how much you're willing to sacrifice.
Right.
So that's the kind of magic that's in this book. Like, you can get A, but it's going to cost you B. So balance that out. So yeah. What about you? What kind of magic, in addition to cultural magic, that you've pulled from?
I usually try to stick culturally, like make stuff. I like to make my own stuff up. And it's often going to have, if I'm creating, so for instance, in my Brooklyn Brujas series, I created a magical system that is inspired by the Greek pantheon, but it only goes as deep as the organization of the gods, right? Like, there's a mother, father god, and then there's a bunch of deviant children. And so, but in my world, they sort of function more as like as saints, things that you pray to, you don't really know if they're real, because nobody has interactions with them, right? It's just these are the people, these are the beings that gave magic to the Brujas, and that's how it worked. And so I think that I strive to create my own magical systems just because it's fun. I really like thinking about how, because magic is religion in these books, right? For my witches, these are their gods. And so how does magic become how does magic take over for the place of religion or work alongside of it, or how does magic take over for science and work alongside of it? So I think that those are like big world building questions that I think about a lot. Mm-hmm.
I do too. I try to ground it. Like, okay, for example, if we're talking about a witch who's all powerful and there's just lightning going through her fingers and it's a whole thing, but then she'll go to McDonald's. So she's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna get the Big Mac. You know, I like to ground it with regular things that you know, kind of make it more realistic. Like, yes, you're a witch, but you still need your coffee fix.
Exactly. Right. Especially when the setting is in the real world.
Yeah.
I love that. Samantha Brown, Sammy, asks, can you tell us more about your dream spin-off novel about Rocky? Is this Rocky Balboa, just to be clear?
Okay, Sammy? I think I know which Sammy this is.
Yeah.
And there are certain people who shall be nameless, Sammy, who are pushing for a spin-off of the rat, Rocky, who's her sidekick, who's her the rat she meets in the park. And they're not going to get it. So they're just pushing for it. But basically, Rocky wants his own adventure because he really does think he has what it takes to be a rabbit. And a couple of people have been asking when we will take that journey with Rocky. And I declined to answer. I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll see how pushy Rocky is.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, so then what about when you're feeling stuck, right? Let's talk a little bit about writer's block. What do you do to
everything,
get over it?
I do everything to avoid it. So I am really good at procrastinating. If it's an art form, and I'd like to say I'm quite good at it. When I don't really, all joking aside, I don't really believe in writer's block. I think it's more a blockage somewhere, but not necessarily the writer. For example, sometimes my characters are talking to me, but I'm too distracted to listen. So then no pages come out. Sometimes the characters aren't talking, which doesn't mean writer's block. It just means they're somewhere else and I got to get them back. So sometimes that means listening to the same music they would listen to, watching the shows they would watch, or sometimes my Netflix queue or Hulu or whatever is filled with things that I myself as Marie would not watch, but my characters would watch.
Oh, I feel you, because I'm about to, two of my characters love heist movies. And so I have a literal queue of heist movies. I enjoy heist movies. Like, I think they're fun, but I mean, there's only so many I can watch like back to back.
I understand.
So, but I'm doing that. Like, I'm doing this work because I'm like, I'm gonna have to reference it, or my characters are gonna have to talk about it. You know, and any things like that. So I'm a big believer in, like, you also watch what your characters are watching. Yeah. And I think that for me, reading sort of unlocks that sort of, what writer's block is, just being tired, right? Your brain is tired, you're burned out. It's and you shouldn't really push through it. I used to say like push through it, but that was 22-year-old Zoraida, right? That I was gonna curse. That girl didn't know anything.
Well, but I still go through it now where like, even I don't believe in it, which means I know that there's something more going on than just writer's block, but I still have moments where it's just, I hate the blank page. I still have those moments. It's just like, like, or it's not coming as fast, or it's not. The only thing I can say, aside from, go where they would go listen to what the characters would listen to, songs or pictures, anything to connect to that character. But sometimes even that doesn't work for me. And when it doesn't, and I always feel I'm very all or nothing, I've been told. And when it doesn't work for me, I always feel like, okay, it's over. I've been writing for a few years and now it's over. All the words are gone. They're never coming back. I don't know how to tell my agent. And my agent is my first call.
She's right here.
It's over. It's over. And then, she's very patient. She's like, no, it's not. I was like, no, you don't understand. And then I do the weeping, crying thing, like, it's all over.
I mean, I think you and I are the same person, because every now and then I'm just like, time to pack up my bags. I'm closing this restaurant.
It's over.
This author restaurant. It's over. And then I start writing another book. So
yeah, that's exactly how it happens. Or I think my sister's like my good luck charm, because she's a writer as well, but for like screenplays and stuff. And I'll go to her, I'm like, I can't think of anything. Everything's awful. It's all over. So, I do the whole blubbering thing, and she's like, And then 2 days later, mystically, 2 days later, something pops in my head, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I come to her house, I'm like, you will not believe what I have in mind.
You
She's
fixed it.
An idea? I'm like, yeah.
It's just living inside you. It's living there. And you always have to take advantage of the ideas that you get, just like make them, they're your plot bunnies and all of this amazing stuff.
The trick is trying to figure out when to push yourself and when to just kind of let it happen and let it be organic. I don't know. It depends. If I owe my editor something, waiting for organic is
yeah. Oh, well, that's true.
Organic
That's true.
I
like to wait for the organic stuff. Like I listen to a lot of audiobooks and stuff like that. When I'm tired and I don't want to read with my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian asks, since we're talking about magic, I should have read this earlier. Do you have any fun writing superstitions or rituals?
Yes, I go to the same before the virus. I went to the same coffee shop for years. I wrote like 10 books there, or if not more. I have to sit in the same booth, and I have to test out the seats to make sure I get the right one. So I'll like try to sit in this chair, and I'll switch it out with another chair from another table. It has to be the right seat, absolutely.
Wait, where is this? Is it in your house?
This is in the coffee shop I used to go to before they closed down.
But we're in a pandemic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Before the pandemic, that's what I used to do. So now I have like a office space, and I have to have my my water on my right and my headphones on the left. Like everything has a place, like the Lunchables. That's what I mean. Everything in its place, and a place for everything. So I'm superstitious about where everything goes, and I'm superstitious about where I sit. So
okay,
what about you?
That's interesting. I have a lot of crystals. I light some Palo Santo or some sage.
Really?
I do. Before I start writing, I line up all of my trinkets. I always have yellow flowers.
Okay, I want pictures of this trinket lining.
Yeah. If you go, it's on my Instagram. Like whenever I like lay out everything, like I have to lay everything out. And be surrounded. I have to take over an entire table. Like that's why I can't share space. Like I can't be like, I can't go to a coffee shop anymore, because I'm like, I have to take over this entire table and get 17 coffees to make it, so they don't kick me out. And then like the flowers is just like an added bonus, because Gabrielle Garcia Marquez always wrote when he had yellow flowers or whatever. And I had to have my coffee, and My one superstition is that my good luck charm, when I finish a book and I turn it in, I have to listen to this song called Danza Kuduro, and I listen to it, and like it's become like my technically, because I finish my deadlines at 4 a.m, I should really get a wind down song, but it's like an amped song because I'm like, yes, I finished. And the reason why I chose this song is because this is the song in Fast and Furious 7 when they're in Brazil. Wait, is that Fast and Furious 6? When they're in Brazil and they pull off that incredible heist, right? Speaking of heist, Vin Diesel throws there's like money throwing all over the place, and then that song comes on. So this is song to me symbols achievement, and that's what I want to feel when I finish writing a book.
You know, it's when you hit the words Vin Diesel that you know the conversation is definitely an interesting one. I didn't think we'd land on Fast and the Furious. I don't know what I was thinking, but but I understand. My favorite playwright, August Wilson, who's, you know, a genius. Whenever he start writing, he would wash his hands first.
Well,
to
in
kind
the days
of
of
like,
coronavirus.
Yeah, well, this is like
we should
pre-corona,
hope so.
like ritual. This is like, I think he died a couple years ago, but like he would have, and he's had, you know, plays, Tonys. He's got like 2 Tonys. He's amazing, and he would wash his hands so that like it was a clean passageway to the, you know, to the characters,
like a surgeon.
and stuff like that.
He's like, I'm gonna cut
like,
open my own brain
and just so there's definitely a little bit of superstition. I won't throw anything away. Like my laptop I wrote maybe 5 books on my old laptop before I got rid of it, and it was clinging on to life. And I was like, but what if all my capacity to write is in this laptop? Do you really want to risk it? No. And they begged, like my family, they had to run an intervention. Like, Lola, get rid of your laptop. You know, like there are pieces of it still on the ground, like it's falling apart. So I'm superstitious about my laptops.
I love that. So somebody has a question about advice. We're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna take like 1 or 2 more. Advice. I'm gonna turn this into just advice for anyone who wants to write a book. Because I don't know enough about poetry to give any advice on poetry, unless you have some poetry advice. The question is like, what advice would you give somebody who wants to write their own poetry book?
Poetry book advice.
Because you wrote poetry.
I did. It depends. If you're writing it to soothe your soul, then I say you can't go wrong. Just make sure you write, because thinking about it and writing it down are 2 totally different things. So, but if it's something you want to do as a career, that's a different kind of advice, because poetry is a different beast, and it's much more difficult to sell a poetry book.
Right.
So it really depends on whether the person's trying to be a career.
Right. I've seen a lot of people self-publish their poetry books. And I think that with anything, you just have to write it, right? Because you can't edit, you can't sell, you can't do anything without
you have to write it.
A finished
that's
product.
my rule now. Yeah, exactly. No, that's my rule now, because I would have a lot of readers, because I write books for Amazon, on like indie Amazon as well. And they would ask, you know, what is the thing? And I know some writers are like, oh no, I never answer. I will always, you email me, I will always answer you. But my policy now is I can help you after you're done with the book. I can at least, you know, answer a couple questions after you're done. Because sometimes, you know, you'll spend like 20 minutes explaining stuff, but then the person's like, oh, I'm on page 2 of the book. And you're like,
well, you got to be on page 350
because
or whatever.
the fun part is the book. Let's get this out now for all of you out there. Hi. The fun part is the writing. If you did not enjoy the writing, you're in trouble, because there's, you know, the other stuff, you know, looking for an agent and getting published, the whole thing, that's great, but that's the business part of it. So if you enjoy the writing and the process, that's great, because that is the fun part. It won't get any more fun after that. So it gets really official.
I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, my final question to you is going to be, what are you reading and what would you recommend? Because I've spent a lot of my time reading right now. And so that's like become my new job. I'm taking February to just read stuff.
Okay, well, I'm going to be really honest, which is always dangerous. My attention span has shrunk so low.
That's
Like,
fair.
I will watch a 30-second commercial and halfway through it feel like I want my time back.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know why my attention span is just so short. Like if I read a brochure, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so long. And it's not the brochure's fault it's long. It's just my attention span is not there. So I'm not really reading anything right now. Also because I'm in the middle of rewrites for a new book, for another book. So in terms of what I'm reading, I'm not really reading anything right now, except notes. Lots and lots of notes from my awesome editor. So I'm not really reading anything.
All right, let me give some. I think that I have some like suggestions for different age groups. So if you want some more middle grade, there's a book called Just South of Home by Karen Strong. And it's a book about this small southern town and these cousins who are like snooping into this like tragic thing that happened in their town, and they're trying to find answers to like the truth. So it's a little bit of mystery. It's very clever, and it's Karen's debut novel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we would also recommend your book too, because
sure, yeah,
for the way to Rio Luna, because I love anything where you have to find places and find objects, and I love the relationship between Danny and his sister. So I would definitely, I mean, that goes without saying, but that's one of the books I would definitely recommend. So
thank you. Yeah. So my book is called The Way to Rio Luna, and it's kind of like a magical scavenger hunt, so that this kid could find his missing sister. And apparently sad, but it's not sad, it's fun.
Can I ask about a book two? Am I allowed?
Oh, yeah, there's no book two. There maybe in the future, but I'm so like at this moment there is not a book two.
Believe me, I understand. I understand. That's why I'm fighting Rocky.
Yeah. Other books I would recommend, if you want something to like, oh man, I just realized I'm reading so much romance novels right now. I can't even do that. Okay, The Bells by Danielle Clayton, which is a magical society, kind of like The Uglies by Scott Westerfeld, but if it was set in Marie Antoinette's court and all these girls have the power to change, like it's like plastic surgery but with magic. And that's really, really dope. So I would recommend those books. Yeah. And if you're an adult but you're here for your kids, I just read The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory, and it was really fun.
Reading.
And that's a fake,
I used to do that.
It's a fake dating trope. So there's a little something for everyone in the family in my recommendations.
Okay, that's good. Definitely do it a lot more often than I'm doing it, because I totally yeah. But I'm working on the attention span. I'm working on it, and as soon as I'm off deadline, because
one, you're on deadline. Two, it's a pandemic. Don't be sorry that you didn't have time to read. During the month of March and April of last year, when the pandemic first started, I couldn't read anything. Like, one, my uncle was in the hospital, so I couldn't read anything. He lived, but he like, with COVID, it's dicey.
It is so dicey. You don't know how that story is going to turn out. Yeah, I understand. Believe me. Sorry. Well, I'm glad though. I'm sorry.
Dark turn. But yeah, like I couldn't read anything, and it wasn't until like I had the certainty that he was better, and then I could find out. This was like, okay, now I have the patience to read. But I had to turn to audiobooks because I had a hard time focusing on words.
I
But
did the
now,
audiobook for this one.
okay. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That's
I did the
amazing.
audiobook with a very light Caribbean accent that I'm like, what if it's not, strong enough or, but it's a nice general Caribbean
I will
accent
have
so
to check that
that,
out. I believe that there is a website there for independent bookstores to link to audiobooks. I'm not sure. Yes,
oh, they're on it.
there it is.
Very on it.
Libro FM. So awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
so see if you like if you having trouble focusing or you just kind of want to chill, try the audiobook and see if it can take you to that journey because there's like a light, very, very light Haitian accent. The yeah, I flew away, very
I
subtle
love
little
it.
things. So that was a lot of fun. And I remember being in the booth and I would read the sentence and it requires a lot of breath or whatever. And I emailed my editor like, why did you let me have so many run-on sentences? I can't breathe through these things. She's like, well, that's how you know.
Okay, last, like seriously, the last thing I'll say is that listening to audiobooks has changed the way that I write because of that. Because I'm like, I don't want my narrator to have to like not breathe.
I was dying. I was like,
right? And so like now you'll probably think about it more when you're writing your next book, right?
Exactly.
It's like, oh, this is a run-on sentence. My copy editor doesn't have to get involved this time.
And I keep saying, oh, who is this writer? Oh, she's just horrible. And
no, you're amazing.
Like, that's you, woman. That's you. I'm like, okay, well, she's wonderful. She's great. You're good.
Well, you're amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for letting me talk to you about your book. I think that Jessica from Greenlight Bookstore might have some housekeeping things to go over for those of you still with us.
I mostly just have a big thanks to both of you. It was so fun to eavesdrop on this conversation. I made a lot of notes. I learned what quarter waters are. I learned some really good rituals that I'm going to keep in my back pocket. So it was so much fun. So we are so honored to celebrate the year I flew away. The link is in the chat to buy that, as well as all of Zoraida's fantastic books, which you can also find on our website. So thank you guys for being here to support these authors and independent bookstores. And thanks to you for sharing your work with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Zoraida. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.